Addresses frequently change as cities and the Postal Service make changes to the way they identify properties. Therefore, addresses are not used by recorders to identify properties. Surveys use landmarks and official markings to identify property, making them more stable as a method of identifying property. Property located in a subdivision is usually identified by lot numbers, which reference plat maps recorded with the county recorder. If the plat maps ever change, the changes are recorded. Recording the changes keeps the county records accurate as they pertain to the legal description of affected properties. Exceptions or reservations. If the estate being transferred has any restrictions or limitations, they must be listed on the deed. This includes encumbrances on the estate being transferred by the grantor, as well as reservations the grantor wishes to make. For example, the owner of the neighboring property may already have an easement across the property being transferred. This easement would need to be described in the exceptions section of the deed as it runs with the land, or must be included as a restriction when the interest in the land is transferred. Perhaps the grantor wishes to reserve and retain an ownership of the mineral rights to the property. In other words, the grantor is selling all the rights to the property except the mineral rights. This would need to be described in the deed. Real estate may be a part of a subdivision with restrictions. The restrictions are most likely outlined in the subdivision documents recorded against all lots within the subdivision. These subdivision documents would need to be incorporated into the deed by reference. Signature of the grantor. This requirement does not require much explanation. The grantor must sign the deed in order for it to be valid. If there are multiple owners of the property and they are listed on the deed, all owners must execute the deed. Remember, one may only transfer what one owns. If there are multiple owners for a property and they do not all execute the deed, full ownership rights will not be transferred. Some states, including Utah, require the signature of the grantor be acknowledged. An acknowledgement is an attestation by a third party that the grantor did personally and willingly execute the deed. In Utah, the acknowledgement comes in the form of notarization by a notary public. The notary public watches the grantor execute the deed and signs a statement which represents that the public notary either knows the grantor or have verified their identity and that they know the grantor executing the deed. The notary also affixes a stamp with the details of their notary authority. A grantor may grant authority for another to sign on their behalf through a document entitled a power of attorney. A power of attorney appoints an individual to act as an attorney-in-fact for another. If an attorney-in-fact executes a deed on behalf of the grantor, the power of attorney document is usually recorded along with the deed. Delivery and acceptance. Before title can be transferred, the deed must be delivered to the grantee and accepted by the grantee. In most transactions, delivery is handled by the escrow agent or attorney coordinating the transaction. The third party coordinating the transaction typically prepares the deed, provides for the grantor to execute the deed, and then delivers the deed to the grantee once all the conditions of the transaction are met. As long as the grantee accepts the deed, the title transfer will be effective. The grantee is not obligated to accept the transfer. For if some reason the grantee does not want to receive the ownership interest being transferred, they may reject the deed or refuse to accept it. If this occurs, title will not transfer. Types of deeds. Now that we've discussed the requirements for a valid deed, we will discuss the several types of deeds which may be executed. The types of deeds differ in the types of warranties or guarantees the grantor gives to the grantee. General warranty deed. A general warranty deed provides the greatest amount of warranties or guarantees by the grantor to the grantee. All other types of deeds we will discuss transfer something less than a general warranty deed. This type of deed is what is typically used in a regular purchase transaction. It is important to note that these warranties are absolute and are not limited to the time the grantor has owned the property. These warranties may seem a bit overwhelming for a grantor to be required to give to a grantee. Title insurance takes most of the responsibilities from the grantor and covers the warranties required in a general warranty deed. We will cover the details of title insurance in another course.